From The Australian, here's what's on the front. I'm Kristen Amiot. It's Friday, March 21, 2025. Someone's doing very well out of the NDIS, and it's not people with disability. Billions of dollars per year are being sunk into middlemen and coordinators, while established service providers are struggling, The Australian is revealing today. The boss of Mitsubishi Motors in Australia says car yards around the country are packed with electric vehicles nobody wants to buy. Sean Westcott is urging the government to pump the brakes on its renewable projects if it wants to avoid a price jump on petrol cars. Those exclusive stories are live right now at theaustralian.com.au. He's the former burger flipper who made his billions in online gambling. Laurence Escalante is one of the new faces of wealth in Australia, featured in The List, Australia's richest 250. That's today's episode. In the year 50 AD, so says the Bible, the Apostle Paul founded the Church of Corinth. It was a bold play. Paul had written letters to the Corinthians, giving them some frank feedback about their way of life. Right there beside him in those early days of the Catholic Church was Timothy, a disciple who became one of Paul's most trusted friends, the guy Paul sent out on his trickiest missions. Also along for the ride was the Greek apostle Titus, a Gentile from Antioch. All three would be canonised as saints, but only the latter two, Timothy and Titus, would reach a new generation of Christians, in video game form. A devout Catholic and avid gamer, Laurence Escalante sensed an opportunity. There was Christian music, Christian movies, Christian TV shows, but video games inspired by the Almighty? Nothing. Escalante, who was in the early 2000s a 23-year-old financial planner living in Perth, bought and remortgaged his parents' home to raise the $250,000 necessary to develop the game Timothy and Titus, Saints, Martyrs, Heroes.
Our tale begins as St. Timothy and St. Titus are going to Rome to collect their letters from St. Paul and to hear news from their beloved friend and father in Christ.
I'm looking forward to it, my friend. I've made this journey with him before. There's a shortcut through the mountains. Follow me.
But the dream of a Christian gaming franchise died with the game's publisher, whose financial troubles landed Escalante in a $250,000 hole of his own.
Friend, what are you doing? You must get out of here.
Not that you'd know it. While he worked off the debt, Escalante gamed his way to a more than $4 billion fortune and the front cover of The List, Australia's richest 250.
Laurence Escalante is a 43-year-old Perth billionaire who loves his fast cars, loves his jets, and loves living the high life, but he's a man who's made a lot of money out of essentially gaming.
John Stensolt is the editor of The List, which is out in full today.
So it's a business that he calls virtual gaming worlds combined together. So gaming being the sort of gambling or casino games that people play online, and the virtual world where people, gamify these experiences. He's put them together, used a sweepstakes model on top of that, and made a lot of money, mostly in America. It's actually something that's banned here in Australia. But virtual gaming worlds has actually turned into one of Australia's biggest private companies.
Laurence Escalante got his start flipping burgers for $5.65 an hour at Hungry Jack's, and later did a stint in retail in Sydney, working at the Reject shop while he studied at Macquarie University. Now older and a whole lot wiser, he flaunts his considerable wealth on Instagram, where he posts highly produced videos of his luxury cars, boats, and private jets.
Looking after your family is looking after friends first and foremost. But now that I have a whole bunch of toys, I just like enjoying the toys, and really a lot of other people like enjoying them as a proxy into my life and the windows of that, and I'm just having fun with it, really.
The wealth that Laurence Escalante has accumulated is essentially a product of online gambling, as we've just said. That's a pretty big swing for a guy who hoped to bring his Christian values to a new generation of people through video games not too long ago. How does he reconcile his wealth and his wealth from gambling with those values? Is he still religious?
He insists that behind all that, there's quite a pious family. His parents from the Philippines, very Christian family, grew up with those sort of values, I suppose. In terms of gambling, what he said to me when I asked him that question is, look, I've had several problem gamblers in the family. I know what it's like. And it doesn't mean that he's not cognizant of the fact that what he's doing, people have a choice whether they're going to play these games or spend their money on it and things like that. So, look, you could argue that maybe he's being a little bit cute about it. He insists what he's doing is legal, and he's reconciled that with himself and seems to be going pretty well with it.
He also talks about the checks and balances that they've put in place online in order to hopefully prevent people from going down that route. What does he say about their effectiveness?
So what he's done is raise the age from 18 to 21 to try and deal with any issues. He claims that they're doing quite well with artificial intelligence and other sort of parameters where they will cut people off if they're spending too much money. He has a background in financial planning. One of the things he did before getting into this business was paraplanning. It sounds pretty boring, going through people's financial plans or investment plans and giving them advice. So he claims that with that sort of mindset, he can tell when people are spending too much or too much money is coming out of their budget. People should be allowed to have an entertainment budget, he says. And part of that entertainment is gambling if you want to do that. Now, he reckons that he's pretty good with keeping those checks and balances in place. He's got the technology overlay with that. Of course, there's always going to be critics. Always is with any sort of gambling company, whether it's crypto or horse racing or the sweepstakes model that Laurence employs. I think he's not hiding to nothing with that, no matter what he says. It really depends on what side of the fence you are, whether you're pro-gambling or anti-gambling or even just agnostic about it as to what you think about him.
Coming up, what Laurence Escalante's rise says about wealth in Australia today. John Stensolt says Laurence Escalante represents a new kind of billionaire. Young, driven, and loving every minute of it. He appears on this year's Richest 250 list alongside youngster Ed Craven and Tim Heath, both crypto gambling mavens, as well as colourful Melbourne figure Adrian Portelli.
He's the billionaire who's been splashing his cash around for years. And today, Adrian Portelli handed some of it out, no strings attached.
Adrian, Chris Hemsworth doesn't work this hard, mate. What's going on? Oh, that's the least we can do, mate.
Do you think we'll see more people from that industry or from that sector appear on the list in coming years?
I think there's two separate elements to that. With Craven and also Tim Heath, they've gone global. So they've taken the Australian sort of, I suppose, acumen. We're a nation of gamblers. It is an element of our society, whether you like it or not, that's there. They've taken that Australian acumen and gone global with it, with the new technologies that we have. So they've benefited from the rollout of it around the world, not necessarily just here in Australia. I think they will keep going. There's several other young Australian entrepreneurs that want to follow in their footsteps. I think that's here to stay, quite frankly. As long as people still want to put money on a sporting event or on a horse race or play in casino, these guys are going to make it pretty easy for them to do that.
And just lastly, you've written in your editor's letter that this new crop of billionaires represent the changing nature of wealth in Australia generally. Tell me a bit about that. How has the list changed in your time as the editor?
Yeah, I think you've gone from a lot of people that took decades to make their money, whether it was in bricks and mortar, in real estate or manufacturing, the slow accumulation of wealth. Whereas these days with technology, you can create a gambling company, you can create a software company here in Australia, but your market's the world. And what that means is you make your money a lot quicker because your market's a lot bigger. So if you overlay that with the young generation's penchant, if you want to call it that, for social media, sharing what they're doing online, their lifestyle seems to be splashed all over their social media. And I think that's what really encapsulates the modern billionaire.
Yeah, they are their own brand.
Indeed.
John Stensold is the editor of The List, Australia's richest 250. It's out right now, so you can get stuck into all the articles, analysis and videos at theaustralian.com.au.